But anyway, so
We're live now.
I called Brad and I was talking to him. He goes, I didn't say anything to him about it. I go, I didn't think you did, but I go, I didn't know who it was that would do
I
it.
heard the same thing today. The city promised. I called down to the city and they said they were going to do this. I don't know who you talked to, but it wasn't me. I
Brad
know that.
said the same thing.
I know, it's amazing.
I can't remember what they came out and yelled at, Quinn goes, he was yelling at him to do, are you going to trim this? Are you going to do this? And he isn't quiet about it. Right.
Right. I'm not seeing anybody yet.
Oh, are we on?
Yeah, we've been live.
Oh,
We're just waiting for people to join us.
oh, okay, all right.
You can just chit chat,
Oh,
grab a drink.
grab that.
John Sacchetti is with us.
Oh, wow, awesome.
Good evening, John. Jan Johnson Miners is watching as well.
Have you done the intro yet, or?
Not yet.
Oh, okay,
You want me to run it?
yeah. And that way I know that we can really officially start.
Okay.
Hopefully Mother Nature's not going to dump on us.
All right.
I mean, look.
Camera's on you, bud.
Oh. The camera's on me. Hey, look at what I found today. It's 3 Floyd's Cheer for the Team Ale. Now, the thing about this one is I got to be a little careful. It's 7.7% alcohol.
Ooh.
So, but it's real, and I can tell most of the time the real hoppy beers are higher alcohol. But we had to go to Rockford today and replace some trees that the people thought were dead. And when Quinn and I got there, they weren't dead. They were probably rooted in really well for being planted for about 9 months, but the deer ate them. And so we replaced them with the same thing, and I told them they're gonna have to do something, so they're gonna wrap them over the winter time and that. But anyway, I had to get some weird stuff because the neighbor's been trading beers, and I owe her several beers. So I had to get some weird shit. So I got some weird shit, and I got to see Jennifer today too, Bachner. I don't know if she's on or not, but
No, but Chris Thompson Weeks is with us, and Debbie Schumann is watching.
awesome.
That's what's showing up on my screen right now.
Well, today we're lucky. Last week you were gone.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to be gone, but then COVID kind of freed up, and so I was allowed to be here, or allowed to go do something else.
Oh, wasn't it a bike ride?
I may have gone on a bike ride and trumped. Yeah, I may have trumped this.
Anyway, we have Scott Shumard, which you're the city manager?
City manager, yes.
That's the title.
Yes.
Or as I tell Brad, I go, the kingpin.
That's no.
When I talk to Brad, and we're going to talk about stuff what the city's doing, and the first thing I want to ask him about that's most interesting to me is how many traffic accidents do you think are going to happen on First Avenue when it isn't a one-way anymore?
Actually, I don't think it'll be too bad. At 5th and First Avenue, there will be a concrete island, so you will have to be directed around, so you won't be able to go up.
Oh,
First
you mean?
Avenue. Yeah, so when you come up 5th Street, there will be a concrete median in there that'll force you to turn left onto 5th. So there shouldn't be any two-way incidents going forward.
Okay.
But we already see that even now. I mean, even today on 4th Avenue, you go down 4th Avenue, and I used to take 4th Avenue to work, and almost weekly you see cars. I mean, just in the going to work weekly, you would see a car going the wrong direction. So even as long as they've been one ways, people still tend to ignore. I think, downtown, it's not uncommon to see somebody going the wrong way, turning into D&E, or coming up or coming down 4th Street and trying to go north on Locust Street. It happens once in a while, and so it's. Even though it's always been that way, there's still people who have a hard time adjusting, or they get lost with it. And this will be a good thing. And I know if anybody's gone down 2nd or 3rd Avenue, 1st Avenue will just end up from 5th Street North, kind of looking like 2nd and 3rd Avenue. So more of a residential feel. And I hope the neighbors will come to appreciate how that feels instead of having a drag strip in front of their house, because that's what we found with a lot of our road projects. Dillon Avenue, we did that all the way from Lefevre to 4th. And once you get a street open that has no stop signs, no cross traffic, and you get brand new pavement, curb to curb, yeah, it's
our road.
Even this is a small road, but you look at something like Dillon, let alone First Avenue, it becomes a real drag strip. And and police can only do so much in 3 to 4 officers on duty at a time aren't going to stop every speeding case. And it's just, and people drive, and that's one of the things, not to get too far off on a tangent, but people drive what they feel comfortable with. It's speed limit sign doesn't mean a whole lot unless you write a lot of tickets. It's more about how people feel, and that's why downtowns, as you know, we've got bump outs. So that's supposed to, the idea is to kind of make it feel a little bit more closed in, and that slows traffic down. And same with residential roads. The more you get people parking on both sides of the road, the narrower the road feels, and hopefully that naturally keeps speeds down, especially in the residential neighborhoods where you get kids and cyclists and things of that nature.
Well, I noticed when they did our street out here, and I'm sitting here having coffee at 5 in the morning, and it's the same freaking vehicle, and I'm going like, that's got to be at least 40, if not faster, going up. But they, since this road's a lot smoother and that, it's they speed down. We don't get near as much traffic since they blocked the road off up there, coming off Freeport
Right.
Road, which they did before they redid our street. But still, the traffic, we used to get a lot of traffic to Wendy's and that.
Yeah, people always find their cut through, and it's, and once the new road gets in, people will find that way to cut through, and I don't blame it. Nobody wants to go.
Oh, is that going to get done? Will First Avenue be done this year?
It was supposed to be done by November. I think they're probably still on track. One of those things that happens is when they tore up that first block between Lefevre and 15th, the soil was not what they were expecting underneath. They had taken core samples, but what they ended up hitting in some spots was, I went up there and walked down, and they handed me some of the dirt. It was, it couldn't have been any more like Play-Doh substance than it was
Brad
incredible.
was saying.
It
was real spongy.
Yeah, and obviously if you try and build a road on top of spongy surface, and everybody knows that's how a pothole forms, is this action and the stuff getting under it and freezing and popping, and it's not going to be long, and we're not going to put, this is a $2.4 million road project, and to put $2.4 million into it, leave a junk base under it, and knowing that 10, 15 years you're going to be back to a similar case where you are now on the surface, just doesn't make sense. So the bad part is to pull out that bad soil, they went down another 12 inches, excuse me. But that means 2 feet of rock instead of 1 foot of rock underneath there. So they pulled everything out, so now you're twice as deep. So now you've got twice the excavation quantities on the contract, twice the rock quantities. And we knew that wasn't gonna work all the way down, because that's just crazy money at that point. And those are 2 of the higher priced items as far as the contract goes. So we looked at some other options. They found that it's called GeoGrid. It looks like a glorified snow fence to me. And somehow it rests on top of that spongy stuff, keeps the larger rock at the bottom of the road base from falling through it, and kind of holds it tight, and keeps the surface from moving so much in the wintertime. And as traffic goes over, the surface gets wet. So that'll go in. It's a lot cheaper than taking out an additional 12 inches and putting in additional 12 inches.
So are they going to have to do that all the way down the road?
So knock on wood, we delayed the project, and they got to the next block between 15th and 14th, and that block wasn't nearly as bad. So they actually didn't have to do anything with that one. So they're kind of hoping as they go south, we won't. So
I wonder if there was something wet, if there was a spring or something.
In talking to the engineer, I was just talking there today, and the lots there are a lot higher.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
that particular block. Yeah, exactly. And so, and then when we put the stuff back in, a lot of those houses are getting a little wall in front of them to keep the dirt back, because that's just how much higher they were than the grade of the road. And the engineer was just guessing between the trees and the surface, the surface difference. The water really just didn't have a place to go in there. It kind of acted like a basin, and that's why everything beneath the road was more of a mushy consistency than it was further down.
I guess you wouldn't think of that too much, but yeah, those houses, because I know, I went to school with Mary Pat Webb, I think, lived there. Yvonne Hyman, they were on the one side of the road, I think, and their house, I just remember it was up, had kind of a terrace in front of it and stuff like that. So what other big projects are road-wise?
Well, I think most people know, we got an early start on a lot more stuff than we usually do. 6th Avenue going north out of town, I hope everybody's gotten a chance to go to that. That was in pretty crummy shape. We did a new surface on that from Lynn Boulevard to 28th.
When it's done?
Yeah, that was
from 6th Avenue to where?
From Lynn to 28th on 6th.
Okay,
just
like where you turn to go to Wall?
Back ways, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we did 43rd Avenue there between what used to be Staples and Walmart, because that was tore up getting to that
Yes,
light.
I saw that.
Another case of a bad base, 25th Street, the 500 block, which was just west of 6th Avenue. If you looked at it last summer or even this spring, the road surface behind the curb, or in front of the curb, I guess, you can see 2 to 3 inches of the curb face, and the road had just sunk 2 to 3 inches. And that goes back to 30 years ago, probably, was put in. And the story I got was when these residential developments go in, oftentimes the developer is in charge of putting the road in, and they're supposed to do it to our specs. And as the story goes, the road got put in on a weekend when nobody was around to see what was going on. And fast forward, this is what we get.
Yeah.
And so we end up paying for it later. It's a pay me now, pay me later thing on roads. So generally speaking, so we cored that one out, redid that one, and then the big we did a block of, we're doing 2 blocks of 4th Avenue right now, between 5th and 7th, new curb, new sidewalks, everything.
Now, are you guys doing it, or is it all subcontracted out?
So it's most of these, 1st Avenue we had to subcontract out the concrete, but on 4th Avenue, 8th Avenue, we've been able to do some of the work ourselves, and that helps us out a lot. We've got a crew of 4 guys that can run a curb machine, and they do all the flat work for us. They can do the handicap sidewalks or the ADA accessible sidewalks, and that helps a ton. So I've got a project sitting out there with an engineer's estimate of, I think, $607,000. And Public Works, if they do the concrete work themselves, they think they can save the project about $100,000. So it helps to have that in-house thing. And part of it goes back to, prevailing wages versus markups and what we can do. And it helps us for, one, we save on road projects, and it keeps guys employed, because then come wintertime, it gives us more people to plow, honestly. That's what it comes down to. So it's a kind of a win-win in that situation, that we save and yet have more people on staff to do plowing come wintertime.
Sure, and if you can save a little bit here and there, you could do another section of road maybe.
So when we do a complete rebuild, generally, if we do the concrete work, it's about $50,000 for a block of residential road. And about $75,000 if we have to contract, to $80,000 to contract it out. So it's a huge savings for us per block. And if you talk about $50,000 a block, and we can save 25, doing 2 blocks on our own gives us another road to do.
Yeah.
And that's a big help. But then the other big project we got, they just started staking a couple weeks ago, if not a week ago, as 4th and 5th Avenue north of the high school, from 19th going up to Folkers. And that's all ditches right now. And the road going up 5th Avenue is atrocious, where the high school, the WACC school, built those new homes. And the road is just terrible up there. But we're going to go back in, and again, same thing, curb, gutter, concrete, sidewalks, and new roads. And that should really help that area. And as we've discussed earlier before we went on, is that when you put in a new road and curb, it really dresses up a neighborhood, and it adds to the property values in general, and it just tidies things up a lot.
Well, I like it a lot. I mean, I know that years ago they wanted to put curb and gutter and sidewalk in, and I didn't care about the sidewalk, but and at the time, it was probably 25 years ago. I said, oh, the road's fine, and that. And so when the guys were doing the road, I was out there talking to them, and I said, I want to tell you, I was 12 years old the last time they actually did something to this whole surface of this road. And I think they did our road. When did they do our road, Lisa, last year? A couple
years ago.
Couple years, maybe 3 years ago. And I love the curve. It makes me go out there and want to clean. And and I call Brad and I go, tell the guy thanks for coming down with the street sweeper, because when he comes down, it really looks nice because he cleans up, and I try to keep it clean as much as I can.
Yeah, and that goes back to everybody, especially the curb, because this time, especially if forecast holds like it's supposed to, and looking at the radar to the west, it's eventually going to get here. When you get those big rains, and I thought, Kewanee got like 5 inches last night, and somewhere in southern Iowa got 8.
Oh.
And when you get those things, if the curb's not cleaned out and the catch basins are overflowing, that's when the water starts crossing the roads and starts backing up. And that's why, that street sweeper is important. And people, I do it too. I got one right on my corner of my house, and it's don't like picking up all the trash out of it, but I definitely go down there and grab a scoop of a handful of whatever's blocking the
Well,
grates.
that's what
That
it's
way
down by
it'll
Janice,
flow.
and I've ran the mower all the way down there and sucked all the stuff up and
Yeah.
and got it out of there, so the water flows.
Yes, absolutely. That's the whole point of that. But so yeah, we've got that in the sidewalk. We've tried. That's something we started doing. I don't know, the last 5-6 years probably, I guess. We've tried to put at least on one side of the street, if not two. And I think especially when you get close to the school area like the 4th and 5th Avenue north of the high school, it's even more important to have those sidewalks where hopefully kids are making that walk to school rather than driving to school.
And Fuzzy wants to be on camera, Lisa.
Okay. Cat's on camera.
Cat's
There's a
on-
cat.
There's Fuzzy. Say hi. Say bye. Bye.
God.
But yeah, and what was I told Brad when I went by, we talk almost, I sometimes when I go, I wonder if I talk to him too much. We talk at least twice a week. But the other day I was driving by and I called him and I go, man, of all the stop signs somebody hit was the flashing one on Lynn Boulevard.
Yeah.
Not a $75 or $100 sign, a $1,200 flashing sign.
And originally those were donated.
Right, and people didn't know that. That's what I wanted to clarify, because there's people that have said stuff about what did they spend all the money,
Right.
but they were donated.
They were donated originally, and so it hurts a little extra when they get hit because then it starts coming out of our pocket. And it's amazing you can hit people think you don't need it, but at the same time, people are still capable of hitting a flashing red stop sign. And it makes
Up on-
you,
and-
yes, up on an elevated curb. So it does, or island. So it does make you wonder. Yeah, I didn't get the backstory. I didn't ask. I got a copy of the picture, and just you roll your eyes and move on. I guess obviously we try and catch get our money back out of the insurance company if we can, but it's a little frustrating at times.
Or the tree, there was a couple trees hit downtown this year. I mean, the one, Brad, they replaced the one on 1st Avenue and is that 3rd? No, that's 4th Street. 4th Street, that got replaced. And then the guys had to trim up the one that the guy annihilated at SBM. It wasn't bad, but I mean, he broke several branches
Yeah.
off the tree and stuff like that. So we cut them and trimmed them off. But, just the care.
It's amazing. It's just right because I know often that comes up. Obviously the roundabout was a big deal for the city, and I think now we've got it in there. So I thought you were going to ask me how many accidents took place there, and I was just volunteer. We've had a total of 2 since it opened, which is far fewer than what we had before it was there. And the 2 we've had were scrapes as opposed to some of the bigger accidents we'd had there last fall, even or prior to last fall. And that's been a big thing for us. But when you talk about downtown and some of the trees and the accidents down there, the number one accident-prone intersection in town is 1st Avenue and 3rd Street. You would think 2 one-ways, how difficult can it be to manage this? But either people blowing lights, not paying attention, whatever it is. I don't know how. And I know one of our visitors here in the audience has been witness to some of this stuff and is a block away from it. It's just amazing. You see cars overturned at that intersection more than once, and it's just.
Scott, I was down there spraying and one day and I heard this and I looked over and I go, holy shit, the car was upside down. And I called Brad and I go, you're going to want me to probably replace some stuff down here. I go, I don't know how it didn't hit this, but it definitely hit this stuff over here. He goes, what? I go, on 1st Avenue, man. I go, a freaking, and that's exact, right there by the bank is right where it happened. I don't know how the car flipped. I really don't know how it did. I was down there spraying, and I heard this, and I jumped, and I turned around, and I was like, holy shit.
It's amazing.
You're probably right. Wow, that's just, I don't know. I guess some of the people the driving down there and that is just, and what did Brad tell me? The pathway to Sauk is,
As far as the bike path goes?
no, isn't there something that got approved and you get an approval of isn't there a path that's going to go?
Well, there's 2 different paths that are underway, and they should ultimately tie into each other. So one, the Park District, together with the Dillon Foundation, is working on a path to go from Hoover Park and Woodlawn Arts Academy.
Sure.
And connect. It's going to go across Woodlawn Road and then kind of through the farm field behind Walmart, and then kind of follow along the edge of the right-of-way of Route 2 until you get close to Sauk, and then wander into Sauk Valley Community College. And they've already started scraping earth for that one. So
I thought I saw stuff going on.
I think the last I heard was that it was about a 3-year project, and knock on wood, when Pete gets involved, once a project gets going, sometimes it happens faster. So I got my fingers crossed it happens faster than that, but the park district is saying about 3 years, and that wouldn't surprise me either, because it's a big lift right there, going all the way from Woodlawn School out to Sauk.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty good idea, because there's a lot of people on bikes and that might just
Yeah, and we're the hope is obviously that somehow Dixon Lee County gets together and finds a way to go from Dixon to Sauk, and I think as a recreational rider myself, that's something I like to find destination rides. So to be able to ride from here to Dixon, have lunch and back, and hopefully vice versa happens, people will go from Dixon to Sterling and have lunch and go back, or whatever else, and hopefully that takes place, and that'll be huge for us. And the other part of it was we just got announced a grant. I think it was our 4th try at it, and this last application took about 3 years of IDOT review to get through, and $200,000 in engineering plus. But we did get the grant, which is worth $1 million, to put in a bike path that goes from Martin's Landing, which is the Dillon home, to downtown, and should cross First Avenue next to the railroad bridge with this independent pedestrian bridge, land in that old national parking lot on the west side, and then spiral around, and then you'll be able to, not the ideal way, but spiral around and either go down 2nd Street past the chamber office to the riverfront, or spiral around and go take the sidewalk onto the underpass down to the riverfront. So we're excited about that. We've got a kickoff meeting on Tuesday with IDOT, where we get the guidance on what the next steps are, because we really don't know what they are until they tell us, and we're
at their mercy.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
That's a tough process. So it's we hope, because we did all the reviews in advance with them, which I think really helped our score. We were tied for the 10th highest score in the state for this grant, which was really exciting to see. It's more exciting to get the grant, but it was nice to see that we had a top 10 score too. But once it gets put in place, that gets 2nd Street rolling too, because we're going to pull the curb in on 2nd Street to make room for that path, which will be a 10-foot path on the south side of 2nd Street, and again connecting to the Dillon home. So then conceivably you could ride from the riverfront on the sidewalk, and then take a 10-foot path from National all the way to the Dillon home, go down the Hennepin Feeder Canal, or continue east on the canal, on the path that goes behind Sinisippi out to Hoover, then again ultimately out to Sauk Valley Community College. So that'll be a huge connection for us. Just knowing how fast things tend to move with state oversight, I don't know if it's going to happen next year. I think it would be optimistic, but we're not going to say no to it. But I think it'll probably be 2 years before construction kicks off.
Yeah, because I've been asking Brad's, especially and I call it the Coliseum parking lot, or the cop shop parking lot when I tell them. But the 2nd Street, like the one end, I mean, it's so screwed up. Yeah. And I told Brad, I go, I want to do some stuff, and he goes, well, they're going to do 2nd Street. So when he was telling me that you guys got that, and I go, well, when are they going to do that? And I said, can I come down there and tell them when they got the end loader to just kind of come over about 4 feet this way and just go right down this way?
Yeah, so,
and I said it'll clear a lot of stuff out for us.
So that's the good and the bad. So 2nd Street needed to be done anyway, but now that we have this grant, I won't say it forces our hand, but it pushes us to find the finance to do 2nd Street. But if I know that First Avenue is a $2 million project, 2nd Street's not going to be any cheaper. And
I bet it's going to be. I wonder if there's railroad. I mean, because the tracks used to be there, that's probably all been taken out, right?
Well, that'll go back. See, that we haven't engineered 2nd Street yet. So whether they decide to pull that stuff out, because there's still tracks. I think people have found it. I know they found them underneath 3rd Street. Some of the old streetcar tracks are still down there.
Oh, geez.
But if the tracks are still underneath there, that can cause a potential issue, but it depends on how much of the base. If there's a good base underneath of it and the road's just done, that's one thing. If there's a bad base that's got to come out, that potentially creates some issues for us as far as the expense side of pulling the things out. But we'll have to wait until we take core samples, and again, it'll go back to the IDOT, and we've got to come up with the money too. And so there's different pots. The main source of our roads are the local option sales tax. So I think it was 2004 when the city passed that with the referendum. And that gives us about 1.2 to 1.3 million a year on road projects. And so again, with First Avenue being 2.4, you can see where the problem is when you only got 1.3 to spend a year.
So where's the rest of it come from?
Well, that's the question. So we've got, there's a source from MFT money, and we get some of that can be used towards roads, but it comes with the strings and conditions of IDOT oversight. So it's not something we're just going to rebuild a block of residential with, because it's just not cost effective to do that. But we've also got FHWA money, which is the Federal Highway Administration that hands out money to metro areas, and so we actually split money with Rock Falls. So there's a kitty that our engineers keep track of who's got how much coming to them. So Rock Falls is getting ready to do Dixon Avenue with that money, and our what we had already set aside and told IDOT we were going to do before this grant came available was Lefevre from essentially Avenue C back to Avenue K-ish, and that little area where we left off with the last resurfacing. So trying to figure out if there's any money left there. And then with this Rebuild Illinois stuff that went through the state, they're actually giving us an additional $1 million. And it's not MFT money, but it's run like MFT. So again, it'll require the state oversight on everything. So we're kind of at their mercy. We have to let them know what kind of project we're going to do with it. And just with this, everything kind of coming to a head here in the last week or two, again, we've gone back to the engineers and said, okay, hey, can you let us know how much we've burned through this year? What more do you expect as far as the expenses and the checks to go out? What is the ultimate estimate for Lefevre, and trying to come with a decent guess on that? What would be the guess for 2nd Street? And then kind of doing the backwards math from there as far as here's what we've got in FHWA, here's what we've got in FT, and kind of just seeing where it goes. And at this point, the council brought up on Monday a fair point about bonding, and so I got some numbers today back from our bond consultant, and municipal rates are still hanging around 1.2, 1.4%. So it's cost effective to bond. In the past, the city has been very reluctant to bond, and now we've issued a few. People see the work being done, and I think it gets people excited. And now we've got the council talk about issuing even more bonds. And the question is, at some point, if we do $4 million more for a couple projects that people want to see done, including like Griswold and Woodburn, we get those knocked out. We've got to do an expansion of the Meadowlands Detention Basin too. So that take $4 million for those 3 projects plus one other one, and all of a sudden all the stormwater money's gone again, and there's no stormwater work that can be happening for 7 more years. But then we've got the road funds, which is another 1.3, and then how much of that do you want to bond? I mean, it makes sense to bond out when interest rates are 1.4 to get some things done, but at some point all your money's going towards bond payments, and you're no longer able to do anything. And so that becomes a political question at that point. Is okay, yeah, we did a lot of stuff, and then for the next 5 years, people are people are twiddling thumbs, and all the money's going towards bond payments instead of work. And the question was, even when we did the first round of bonds, is there's only so many contractors too, and how much work can you get bid out and get accomplished in 1 year? And I think it's going to be an even bigger issue now that Illinois has released a whole bunch of capital funding, because we've seen a contraction on the number of contractors that are out there, because the state's made it relatively difficult for the small guy to succeed out there. And so we're lucky to get 3 bids sometimes on a project, and even on these $2 million projects, when you're only getting 3, 4 bids, sometimes 5, and that 5th one is a real flyer from somebody way far away, hoping to get something. It's just not that competitive. It's competitive, but it's not that competitive.
Do you think it's because the projects are too? The bigger guy goes, that's $2 million. I want a $20 or $30 million.
That could be part. I don't know. That could be part of it. But we've again, some of the smaller contractors are around here just aren't here anymore. And then you see some of the ones that used to be here, and going back, I'm sure you remember like Northwestern Illinois.
Sure.
And they were bought up, and then the company that bought them out of Rockford bought them. Somebody else bought them, and now they're part of a much, Helm. I think they ended up as part of Civil, and Helm now owns Civil, and it's just you get bigger and bigger up there, and there's fewer and fewer companies actually competing.
My God, I think I need to drink after that.
I got a couple questions.
Holy shit. Awesome, good. Ask questions, you guys.
Yeah, I asked him to ask some questions, so let me put a couple up here. Well, first off, Diane Rude said she was really thankful she got her 6th Avenue done. It sure is nice. Brian Edward Eade said, I saw plans for national manufacturing. When is that going to start?
We haven't got there yet, Brian. Go ahead.
Start there?
Sure, you can, because that was one of my things. What's going on? National
is quite the conundrum, as always. So we just got control of it last year. So Stanley Black & Decker still owned it until last year. We just got it turned over to us, and that allowed us to kind of get the ball rolling. So the agreement when they turned it over to us was they would be responsible for everything underground. We'd take over everything over the above ground. And you know, someone might say, well, that's not very fair. It was their mess. Why aren't they responsible for cleaning it up? And I would say, you're correct. The problem is Stanley likes to sit on things. And if they were allowed to sit on it, they'd sit on it for the next 40 years, because I think the property tax bill that National paid was like $40,000 a year total. Not to the city, to all the taxing jurisdictions was 40 grand. So it's not really in their interest to go spending $500,000, $2 million to clean up the property when they can just write a check for $40,000 every year and let the thing sit. And that's essentially what they were doing. And you know, they were still paying a hefty utility bill on top of it to keep the heat on, to keep the sprinklers going. But honestly, I don't think they cared. I mean, to me, I look at the bills they were paying six figures in utilities, and you would think, hey, let's get this off the books, but they don't care about Sterling, Illinois. And
I knew that when they bought it, because I worked there 22 years, and I told everybody, I go, you used to complain, now wait till you see the way a corporation is.
Yeah, and so somebody who was high up in National said, hey, just look at how they treated New Britain, Connecticut. And that was one of the first things I did, is I called New Britain, Connecticut, talked to their code enforcement department, and said, hey, you know, what's going on with this? How's it been? You know, any tips for me? And nobody wanted to talk to me. And part of it was, you know, Stanley was based in New Britain, so they didn't want to burn any bridges. I get that, but at the same time, I think New Britain had been closed for decades, and they just started leveling it, I think last year or 2 years ago, they finally started taking things down. But I think it sat 30 to 40 years. And that was the question. You know, obviously people feel it's sat too long. I don't disagree, but when you consider it sat 30, 40 years in New Britain, them giving it to us and saying, okay, fine, but you're responsible for everything above ground, is at least gives us some control going forward. So we signed the donation agreement, and they have been down there last fall or last summer. You could, if you were coming across the bridge, you would have seen an excavator. They were digging out some bad soil right in front of the smokestack there, right to the base of the smokestack. Sure. And that was, I understand, it was leftover from an MGP site that used to be there. So they dug all that out.
MGP?
Manufacturer gas. That's back when they used to burn, I think they burned, as I understand, they burned coal tar to create natural gas.
Yep.
And all the nasties just stayed on the ground because nobody knew back then or cared. So there was a big pool that went all the way to the seawall. And then they had to go through with EPA because the environmental firm that was employed by them didn't want to go all the way to the seawall because they were afraid of what would happen to the seawall if you excavated everything behind a 15-foot seawall. What would happen? Would you compromise the integrity of the seawall? But at the same time, EPA wasn't real keen on just letting the soil stay there as it was. So they went through a series of tests to see. They would inject stuff in the ground to see if it would neutralize what was in there, and then wait for the results to come back a couple months later. And every time they did, it never fixed the problem. In a case, as I understand it, one time it actually made the problem worse somehow. And I don't know if it just allowed the stuff to flow more or whatever it did, but it didn't work. So it took a long time because the last thing they wanted to do was excavate, because then they would need IEPA to sign off on leaving some of the soil there and going through that whole process. Not to mention the excavation is more expensive than just injecting chemicals in the ground. So anyhow, they finally got around to doing that and agreeing to do it. Started the work last year and then turned it over to us. And we're kind of started to chip away at the elephant one bite at a time. So we did we hired somebody to do the environmental cleanup inside the wastewater treatment building, because the stuff that was above ground, and as you mentioned from working there in the past, there were cyanide tanks and different chemicals, chromium tanks, I think, in there.
Yep.
And then ultimately the clarifier pit, and we hired a company, and it was about a $200,000 contract to clean out the contents of that building that we got stuck with. And as I was saying too before we got on here, we got to the clarifier tank. All the other things were hauled out. All the waste was sitting in a container waiting to be hauled off site. And the clarifier, they thought it had a metal liner all the way through it. And it was concrete below it, like 8 inches. There was an 8-inch band around the top, and then it was concrete below. And somehow they weren't able to see that. So now there's residue all over the concrete. And they tried pressure blasting it, and nothing would work. And they brought in like a 5,000 pound PSI sprayer, and that still wouldn't clean the residue off. So they didn't want to haul it all off as hazardous waste, but so that's why they were trying to do all these cleaning attempts. So now they've taken a core sample of it, sent it off to a lab. We're waiting the results on that to find out if it's hazardous waste, if it can be hauled off as special waste, or if it's there's a thing too where if it's only a certain percentage, so if it's a small percentage, it just depends on how it is. You can end up hauling it to a regular landfill versus a special halt waste landfill, and we're waiting to get the information back from the environmental people on that. And then once that's done, we actually have a contract in place to have that building come down. So that'll be the first domino, I hope. The second one is that training building that's on the far west side.
Yeah,
it was a little one-story building with a basement.
That used to be Borders, and I heard about.
What was that?
Well, when Brad was telling me what happened when they were digging and they
Yeah.
found all the stuff under, I go, well, I know what was there, and he goes, what? I go, that was where Borders machine shop was.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that before.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was. Well, Lisa's grandpa worked it there.
Oh, all right. So, yeah, so we were that building was supposed to come down and it's supposed to be part of the parking lot for the riverfront in the future. And it was always planned that way. And as you noted, they started taking it down. They got below the basement, broke up that slab. All of a sudden, the smells of something oily was coming up, and a petroleum type of smell. So that stopped that project in place, and it was okay. What's got to be done here? And the project was enrolled in what's called the Illinois Site Remediation Program through the IEPA. And under that, if you have to tell them what you're going to do, what the plan is for the cleanup, and then if you execute it as they agree to in the remedial action plan, you get what's called a no further remediation letter. So therefore, anybody in the future is not on the line for doing anything because the IEPA has issued a letter called, again, the NFR, the no further remediation. So you can buy it without worrying that somebody's going to come back on you for whatever's there. Well, the NFR that Stanley got that was supposed to be given to us included that property, but it didn't include us excavating that thing out and demoing it. That was kind of like leaving that slab in place. So they were still going to take care of it. One of the other conditions was there's two ways to take care of the problem. One is to put a solid surface like an asphalt layer and a layer of asphalt, concrete, whatever, to keep any soil from coming up, any vapors from coming up. So if you look at the north side of Wallace Street, where there used to be some buildings, those were all paved over, and that was actually an environmental measure, believe it or not, and it wasn't just done to clean it up or keep the weeds at bay. It was actually, it's considered a cap by the IEPA. So that was one option, or two was you put 3 feet of dirt on top. And the long-term plan is to have Wallace Street realigned, and if you've been down to the riverfront, you'll see there's the starts of a new Wallace Street, and it's several feet higher than the existing one. And we didn't want them to just we didn't want them to put down a layer of bituminous on top of everything and call it a day, because then if we go to build the new Wallace Street on it 7-8 feet higher, there's that much fill on it. And then the water, once the water, we talk about the stormwater issues, once the water gets down to that bituminous, it won't go anywhere. Then the dirt becomes mush underneath the road, and that's a bad sign. So we wanted to be able to drain in the future. So we asked them to do the 3-foot cap. Well, that's more expensive to haul in clean fill. Well, it just so happened we did the Northland detention, and we needed a place to put the dirt that was hauled out from behind Northland Mall, the detention area. So we had it tested. They said it came back clean. So we hauled a bunch of dirt down the riverfront, which is sitting down there where the last warehouse came out at, just
Sure.
West of Avenue B. And they were going to use that dirt. And when the when the environmental people for Stanley went and tested it, they did a different round of testing. They found a pesticide that hasn't even been legal since 1972 or something like that, sitting in there. And so we have no idea when the last time that was ever farmed behind Northland Mall. I have no idea, 50s maybe, I don't know. There's some aerial photos from the pre-mall when that area was
Where you
farmed.
dug that out? Well, there's a spring that runs through there.
Yeah, either way. So they found a pesticide in there which doesn't meet all of the requirement. We can use EPA says you can use it anywhere in town except for on a bad environmental site. So we can use it as fill anywhere except for as
That doesn't make sense.
These are the rules we deal with, and when people wonder why things don't happen, this is why. So, yeah.
This is why we drink.
Yes. So, cheers. So the easiest thing to do was to actually pull that section of the property out of the Illinois Site Remediation Program. So that area where the training building is won't be eligible for a no further remediation letter, which is okay in our eyes because it's intended to be a parking lot. it's not going to be resold off to anybody. So we're okay. It's supposed to be a public parking lot for the riverfront. So we're not concerned about having a no further remediation letter given out to somebody in the future. So we've had that surveyed. We've made the request to IEPA to have that pulled out, and we've delineated it. And I know I got an email after 5 o'clock today and haven't had a chance to look at it, but there was some document with Stanley to formalize this request in place. So
What a crock of, I'm sorry, everybody, what a crock of shit that you have to go through to get something freaking done. I'd freaking come unglued at these meetings. I couldn't take it.
Well, I mean, it's part of it's EPA rules, part of it's dealing with corporate Stanley and Black & Decker, and and you're trying to balance out the two, and you're doing two things at once on two sides and trying to keep everybody happy. And everybody's, of course, looking to avoid and mitigate any risk of loss or
cover your
cost.
ass.
Yes, and so that's where it becomes very difficult. And money talks, and if we want to throw all the money in the world at it, we could probably solve it tomorrow. But that takes away money from other projects people want to see at the riverfront. So that's why. I know people want to see things progress faster. I get that. We do too. I'd rather leave my mark on the city as having done something, not as having let this stuff sit. But there's still a process. There's a process to everything, and trying to fast forward or jump over, pretend like I can work without EPA there. I can't do that. So we do what we can within the legal confines.
I hate the chain of command. I always went like this. Like, there's the first step. I always went around to the kingpin over here because I always figured, by the time it gets to that.
Yeah, we've done that in the past, and we have to hire people to do that though,
I know.
Pricey people, and we've done that in the past, and it's gotten us places, but at a cost, and and then people, it's easy to, somebody's always going to chirp one way or the other. Why did you go on so long, or why did you spend so much to get something done? And it's one of the.
Well,
it really
I
is
don't
one of
think
the other.
people know, and there's a lot of that unknown. That a lot of the people in the town don't understand. Like maybe Brian's wondering, why the hell aren't they doing anything? Well, it takes a lot of money to do one little thing to down there. I mean, I didn't really realize what you guys had done on the riverfront till I had to go meet Brad, and he goes, I'm down on the riverfront on the new, where building 22 is at in the Greater Sterling Development, where they moved the Cobb building. Right. And I went down there and I go, holy shit, when did this happen? I didn't know anything about it till that happened.
I say to an extent, purposely done a bad job publicizing it, because we also get crosswise if we don't have handicap or ADA access to everything. I mean, we haven't had it to date. We got a couple spots missing out there. There's a 10-foot path that's, I would say, 90% complete. We ordered a new bridge. There's two bridges that need to be built. Will Hoffman's designing one to build this year, and the other one's been ordered. It's a wooden decorative bridge. And if you've been down to the riverfront, there's a little crossing next to the detention, or it's a retention pond. And it should be a scenic spot where we purposely bought a scenic bridge for it. It's something where I could see the rivers in the background, the ponds in the foreground. I could see
pictures,
prom pictures, homecoming pictures, all that stuff. Engagement photo, whatever it is. It should be a real spectacular spot. And if people haven't been down there, the swinging benches that are down there are kind of cool, and they harken back to the steel mill with the I-beams that were used to construct them. And there's some nice stuff. We've got interpretive signs waiting to be installed. I got about 2 weeks ago the lighting and security camera plans. So at the beginning of the week, I'm going to send those out to our local electric companies, see if I can get some quotes, see if the plans look good to them, because they are a full set of plans. But that's one of the things too, is it's one thing to have people down there, and people want to see the right people down there. And right now, there's graffiti showing up. People unfortunately are trashing it with leaving everything from beer cans to we found just people leaving their dead bait behind on the, it's just you build something nice, and this is what's happening. So hopefully with lighting, cameras, that solves a lot of that problem. And so we've got the plans back for that. But those plans don't get developed overnight either. But we ordered those up last year, and I've now got them in hand, so we can go out
and I think Quinn, when our guys were down on County Market Plaza, Brad, we walked around and he put the new trash cans, and Quinn said, well, I looked at them and there's a lot of stuff in it, so they're getting used. So, we had them because, I'm not kidding you, you know how depressing it is every week to go down, and one of the first things you do is you pick up all the shit, all the trash. Sometimes, the guys like it because Quinn goes, I scored, full bottle of vodka, not open, the seal isn't broke,
Wow.
stuff like that. But, a lot of it's really bad.
Guessing it wasn't the Grey Goose, though.
No.
Okay. Pop-Off?
I can't remember what it was.
Skull.
He said it was good.
Oh.
I can't remember. What did he
Hawkeye.
say it was, Lisa? Do you remember?
Gordon's?
I have no idea.
I just remember, and that was, they really were happy because they had all the stuff lined up that was usable. The half bottles they threw away, but over the winter time, we're not down there during the winter, so the first spring day they go down to clean up, it's like a freaking treasure. I mean, we found bikes, fish poles, stuff like that.
Yes.
And one of the things that I was talking to you about is this thing where I read in the newspaper was small cities with big ideas, and one of the things in like the 10 ideas they had, and I think. I don't know how it could be implemented or what the liabilities would be. You'd probably have to talk to the attorney. But like the homeless people, using them to clean up trash, to clean up your city, to go around and do some of the stuff like that. And they gave them vouchers. They didn't give them money, but they gave them vouchers. Like maybe you give them a voucher to County Market, or you give them a voucher to someplace else. Maybe to get a haircut or do some other stuff like that. But one of the times when we were down there was a kid that was sleeping under the tree at the library, and we had to mow, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to ask this kid to get up, and I go, hey man, we gotta mow, can you get up? And he goes, yeah. And they were handing out lunches. I don't know if they still do that or not, where they gave feed the kids. They had lunches there, and I went over, and I think it was Marcy that was there, and I go, hey, did you ask this kid if he's eating? And they go, no. I go, well, can I get a bag? I don't know if this kid's eating. He's sleeping on the grass. So I gave him that, and then we mowed, and we were working, and we came back, and he's back there sleeping. So I went over and talked to him a little bit, and I said, tell you what, I go, are you here a lot? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, we come down on, Lisa tries to get me to do the schedule, every day consistent. So every week we were going down there on Tuesday. So we'd go down there on Tuesday, and I'd see the kid there, and I go, all right. I said, here's a bucket. I said, you go around and pick up all the trash and stuff like that and put it in a bucket. I'll give you $20. And he did it for like 3 weeks. The kid was down there, and I'd give him the $20, and I'll never forget the very first time I did it. He came back. He goes, I can't believe all the shit that's thrown down. I go, amen, brother. I go, here's a brand new kid thinking the same thing that we did. That the people throwing the stuff in the trash and just destroying this stuff. It frustrates me bad.
Yeah, I think if anybody did a couple litter pickups in their life, they'd change any of their bad habits. Because we've done them back in the old Clean and Green days too, and it's
depressing. It's just depressing to me.
Well, it's just it's one of those things where you do one little thing and you don't think about your problem, but then when 1,000 people do the same little thing, all of a sudden it adds up to really mean something.
And the problem is that there is trash cans that are down there, that they just have to walk a little bit. Or when Brad and I were down at Dale Park, the lady was walking the dog, and then, I saw her, and, the dog went to the bathroom, and I yelled at her, I go, thank you very much, cleaning up after the dog shit. Is a big thing,
Oh, has Janet been talking to you?
No, I didn't tell you I won't go into the story. Maybe when we're off camera, I'll tell you my story about the dog shit.
Yeah.
I don't.
Geez.
It's an issue.
It is, but I thank the people, and I saw a guy walking by. I call it the Mill Clinic, but the CGH clinic, and it was there, and the dog went and he picked it up, and I made sure that I said thank you to him because I'm glad that they're picking up their stuff. Right. And stuff like that. But the other thing is that I don't know if Brad has drilled into your head. I got it into his head that one of the plants that is not allowed
I know what this one is.
ever again in the downtown city is sumac.
Oh, no, I thought we were going to go with the Russian sage story.
No,
No.
I'd take
That's
Russian
okay.
sage any day.
That's okay.
And we got the call. Brad told me the other day, he goes, they called again from the Sterling Fed. I go, oh. I go, Brad, you know how bad we butchered that back?
I forget which one this is.
Brad and I are on the same page. And I looked at you, Scott, if you looked at it right now, it looks like shit because Quinn sheared it a square all the way down. And it's not, it doesn't look good. So Brad and I are on the same page, is that he's going to bring the excavator down and we're going to get rid of that.
Wow. Where's it? What corner? What like? Where's
It's
a good
in
example?
between the alley where Sterling Fed is and the Y lot.
Okay.
Every year. It's a maintenance nightmare.
It's a garbage magnet.
It's a, and you wouldn't believe, you wouldn't believe, and the people that call, you know, and I'm going to say this, and I'll go right ahead and say it. They call, you know, and say, hey, I can't park my vehicle. Now, Brad and I were down there the other day, and I go, Brad, there's freaking 25 other fucking freaking parking places
Oh, that's why we're not in charge of the FCC here.
down there. I said, you know, if they parked one over, it wouldn't matter. But then they call and say, you know, I can't park my vehicle. Can you trim the bushes? And we go down to trim, and they're parked up there, and we have to go ask them to move because we can't trim the bushes.
Yeah.
So Brad, we're on the page. We got an idea that we're going to do, and he's gonna we're going to work together, and we're going to.
I got one more city question and one gardening question.
Okay, good. Sorry.
No, it's no sorrying. I'm just trying to figure out where to slide in. So the city question is, how is Lawrence Building's future?
Oh.
I'm
Somebody
going
on
to
the
go
hot
get
seat?
another beer on that one.
Somebody's on the hot seat.
No, I know
Oh.
it's a fair question. That's a fair one too. So that's one of those other things we're juggling, and we have. We're working right now. I have the draft was sent to me today for a master developer, and I think we've applied 8 times for the brownfield cleanup grant, and we've been unsuccessful each time. We've hired a grant writer that's gotten successful grants other places in the state, and this year I think last year only 3 downstate cities got the grant in Illinois, and the rest went to Chicago. And last year, I'm not sure if anybody outside of the Chicago area got one, from what I understand, or I should say this year, based on last year's grant. We've kind of I don't say we've given up on that, but we've kind of taken a different tact on what to do with it. We've got the redevelopment plan. It's on the city's website, so I'd encourage you to look at the redevelopment plan that Gary Anderson put together. And Gary Anderson Architects out of Rockford has done a number of amazing projects up in the Rockford area. One of the most recent ones being the Embassy Suites project, where they took the old industrial building up there. Was that the? Well, it is the Embassy Suites, but it was before that. It was the Amrock. Yeah, there was the Amrock.
Oh,
building.
really?
Yeah, they turned the Amrock into an Embassy Suites, and they took us up there. We got a tour of it before it opened. It's just amazing what they were able to do. And the benefit of having Lawrence there is there's state historic tax credits and federal historic tax credits. And when you combine those, you can get close to 50% tax credit back on any investment you make in it. So it's, in a sense, it's easier to work with something already in place than it is to try and build new in some of these cases when those incentives are there. And obviously we can TIF it out, and a TIF works in our favor when the building's there too, because a TIF, then if you do anything to an existing building, that's all eligible expenses. TIF on new or on bare ground, you can't build a building with it. So it's in the long run, it is advantageous. In the short run, obviously it looks terrible. It's not a welcoming sight to the community. But we did put some money in to kind of hopefully fix up the windows later this summer. And then we do have, again, a master developer agreement, because one of the same developers who worked on the Embassy Suites project has actually been down here a couple of times to look at the Lawrence building pre-COVID. That was another topic too, but pre-COVID they were down here, and obviously things kind of came to a grinding halt in the last year. But he was interested in doing something and putting together a developer agreement, but we want to go out and make sure that we're not just going to automatically hitch our cart to the first horse that shows up, but go out there with a request for qualifications, and go out there and see if there's any other developers that would have interest in taking on both Lawrence and National, because we have an interest in packaging them together and getting them out and doing something with the entire riverfront rather than just picking and choosing. And the Lawrence building, I know you don't know it from the outside, but on the inside,
It's twice the mess National.
It's twice the mess, but architecturally, it's much better than what National is.
Really?
And yeah. Oh, yeah.
What do you mean architecturally?
It's the spans inside are it's all arched on that 5-story building. The first 4 stories are all arched spans.
So it's
on the
got
inside.
character inside.
Yeah, it does. And so the idea of being able to reuse that gets the architects excited. Again, for a layperson walking in there, and even myself in there, it's like, I don't know how you're going to do something with this, but people who have done it before, they see it and they're like, yeah, we got something here. And so that's why public pressure might say, hey, just tear it down, but there's a cost to that. And just like, the blue wastewater building at National, we're talking about $200,000 just for the environmental cleanup and $30,000 to tear it out. So that's a $250,000 project by the time all the little extras are thrown in there. And that doesn't include my environmental people's costs that are part of that either. But then you start talking about National, and even then, we go back to 2012, and I think the quote was 1.2 to demo it, and that didn't include haul away, that didn't include any asbestos remediation.
And the boiler room's full.
It didn't include any remediation of lead paint. It didn't include anything. So you've got to do all those things, otherwise the whole thing gets hauled off to a hazardous landfill, and you can't haul the entire Lawrence Brothers off to a hazardous landfill. I mean, just too cost prohibitive on top of the one. So, it's a multi-million-dollar project to demo it versus, if the city can seed $1 million into it and a developer does the rest, and historic tax credits whether on the federal and state side do it, and TIF dollars do the rest of it, we can get a lot more done. And so now we've just got to get, we'd hoped through the grant process to get the thing cleaned up. That way it was better presentable to a developer. I didn't care. They don't care about the windows being broken out. They're all going to be replaced at some point anyway. The roof's another issue. But the environmental cleanup, cities have better chances. The cities have a means to get dollars for that federally. A private developer doesn't have the means to get the federal dollars for that. So if we could prepare it in advance, that just makes the package easier to sell to a private developer down the road. And we've gone through this, in hindsight, if we'd known we'd be unsuccessful 8 or 9 grant processes in a row, yeah, maybe we do something at the get-go, but we didn't know when we first applied that, we wouldn't be getting this thing 8 or 9 years later. And so that makes it a little bit difficult, and hindsight is 2020, but here we are. And so, we're continuing to apply for those grants. We applied for a Rebuild Illinois grant for Lawrence, and haven't heard back on that one. But we'll go forward with the master developer agreement and see if we can get interest in having a private person take it over for us at this point.
Couple questions on this segment, this area. Brian Edward Eade said, "Thank you, Scott, for answering the tough questions." And then Scott Vreel said, "If our grant requests keep getting denied, shouldn't we look into getting a different grant writer?"
Yeah, I've heard that argument, and I would say yes, except for this group got one for Dixon, they got one for Danville, they've gotten for other communities, and I don't know if it's just, there's other things that play into it, I think, on the federal level. Sometimes Sterling is seen as gotten its share because of all the Northwestern Steel and Wire money, and that's been an issue that I've heard behind the scenes from people. You can't get anybody to go on record to say it, but we've had millions go into the Northwestern site, and it's kind of how much do you keep giving one community, especially one of our size, and it's hard to guess. But if Fair Graham was our grant writer in this case, and if they hadn't been getting them for other people, I'd say yeah, it's probably time to move on. But at the same time, the original agreement we had with them was we paid them to write the grant, and then the agreement was they would write the grant every year until they got it without additional charge. So that also makes it lucrative to stick with them, and they seem to have the right ends. They've given us some inside information in the past. They're the ones that brought the developer from Amrock Embassy Suites down to Lawrence and gave us that connection. So part of it is that that interpersonal stuff, as far as are they bringing somebody to the table. They work hand in hand with Gary Anderson, who again has had a hand in a lot of the redevelopment projects up there, and that's sometimes it's switching horses mid-race isn't always the way to go either, and yeah, it's a tough call, but I do think just based on their track record in other places that it's worth sticking with them.
Did you, when you took this job, did you know that you'd be in the circus as a juggler?
Not this bad. I know if anybody remembers Jay Whelan before me, he said that the riverfront would kill the next person, and I didn't believe him, but I'm starting to. So
Man, juggle all the stuff around.
But I do, and I know Jana's heard it. I think we're so close to turning the corner The reason you would have seen more at the riverfront now too, but the biggest issue I've been dealing with the last few weeks, I won't say the biggest, one of the bigger issues is there's a railroad crossing across the existing Wallace Street, and I need that pulled to get the new Wallace Street built. And because not only is there the crossing, but there's that spur that goes in front of the old machine shop slash what I know as the
Sure.
National Training Building. And we need those pulled, and we've been working with the UP. We've had conversations since 18. We signed an agreement. They had us, one of the ways for the UP to evaluate whether or not to pull a rail, they have a process. You sign up a form, and then you have to sign a commitment letter and hire their consultant, a group called Olson, to evaluate whether or not that track is going to be needed in the future. And so I said, well, rest assured, the city owns it. We have no intention of ever using it again. Some of the buildings that are along it are intended to come down. I can assure you there's no purpose. Well, that doesn't suffice them. They got to go through the whole process. And they make you sign a contract that's open-ended. It's not like a $30,000 contract or a $20,000 contract. It's an open-ended contract until they decide. So here we're stuck. And we're not getting anywhere. And in the process, I would say, December, January, somewhere in that time frame, I get an email from the UP's real estate folks out in Omaha, and they have discovered they have old easements, some of them dating back to the 1800s, in the northwestern steel and wire part where trains must have backed in, even pre-mill day, even because some of it goes over where the buildings were, and they want to resolve that at the same time. And so I had a phone call with them, and like one of the easements from the 1800s, the city actually granted them the easement for $1. And they want us to buy these easements back, and
for $1.
Like one's a parcel, and some others are easements. And they said they wanted us to make an offer, and so I called her up and I suggested. I said, well, we sold it to you for $1. Are you looking to get $1 back? She's like, oh no, there's a lot of people that have to review this, and we have to make our money. You know, like, well, okay. So I didn't know. I didn't know how am I supposed to guess what this is supposed to be worth. And then she suggested I needed to get this done because we wouldn't want to do anything on the riverfront on top of their property. To which I said, well, you understand the city spent millions of dollars cleaning up the entire northwestern steel and wire area, including the areas where your tracks are, correct? And she kind of blew it off as if though it didn't matter. And I thought, well, in exchange, I thought, well, we've cleaned up your property. The least you could do is turn over your unused property where there haven't been rails for 50 years. And I've received some legal advice that we could probably file for abandonment and get the tracks back at no cost anyway. But they wanted us to go out, when I talked to her, and she wanted us to get an appraisal for all those tracks. There's like 7 or 8 tracks, it's TRACTS, not TRICKS, and then give them an offer to purchase the property back that they haven't been on.
$7.
Yeah, well, they want a formal appraisal. So I'm not paying an appraiser and paying the UP for something that's been sitting there for 50 years. But at the same time, I'm here on this, and I'm hoping it doesn't make it to Omaha. But I'm not going to make them angry by saying, filing an abandonment suit, while I'm trying to negotiate for them to kindly give up the track and the crossing.
It's all about freaking, that's the bad thing, Scott. It's all about money. You know what? I just send them a letter and say, when we get done, why don't you give me a jar of Vaseline too?
You get to say that.
Yeah, pretty much.
I just, that's why I could never be on any of these committees. I just go.
Yeah.
There's just too much.
Just speak your mind a little too much.
You can move forward, but you got to go like this to get there.
Yeah. So since 2019, we've had this agreement in place. So then. One of the aldermen noted that the ICC has some jurisdiction over crossing. So I did call the ICC a week or two ago. I called them originally about a month ago, and then I kind of backed off. I didn't want the UP getting a call. I thought maybe we were close, based on some of the email exchanges I saw, and I thought, well, I don't want to get ICC in there and then mess things up for me at the last minute. Well, then the consultant said, I guess I read that wrong, and it's not going to happen this way. I'm like, all right, so I'm calling the ICC. So we had a conversation, and he more or less told me the same thing, is railroads kind of get carte blanche with everything across the country, and they don't really follow too many rules. So he told me the best thing for me to do was to find a way to work it out nicely with them. He said, I can go through the ICC and we can try pushing some things, but he said, you're better off working with them and trying to do it the nice way. even if it takes you time, because it's going to take even more time if you start pushing. And so I find myself in that position a lot of times where if you push, you get told it's going to take you more time. And I've found this with some state agencies, and I've found this with railroads and sometimes utilities too. Whereas
Wow.
the harder you push, the more they push back, and and that's where it goes back to sometimes money talks. And if the ICC guy suggests, if we perhaps sweeten the pot, and not only do we pull the rail out for them, because we can't close their switch, they've got to do that, but if we pull the rail out for them, if we offer cash for all this stuff, then perhaps they'd listen more rather than just saying, you know what, we understand the rail's not needed any longer. And money answers everything, but we've only got so much, and so
Exactly.
and we've got once money's gone for paying for rail, or once money's gone paying for a demolition of something, it's gone from the capital fund. And it took us. We've got several million to spend on the riverfront once things are ready to go, but once it's gone, it's gone. It took. I've told people it's taken years for this to build up, and it wasn't just me. It was both of my predecessors. They started building up the general fund, and then we created the capital fund 10 years ago and started rolling the money into there to kind of build it up. But it's taken, to get to that $8 million, it's taken the better part of 25 to get there. And so if you spend it, again, it's gone. So that's why we're also looking to. We've got some budget numbers for everything, all the wants that have been issued for the riverfront. There's a lot of wants out there. And so we need to pare it down, because we can't do it all. We want to make sure the community's got the same priorities going in the same direction. And if the priority says, hey, get Wall Street redone and pay the UP, okay, that's fine. That's one thing we can do, but just know that means that's less money to put into demo of one of the national buildings, or it's less money to put into, a usable recreational park at the riverfront, or whatever else it is.
It's too bad that stuff stands in the way when they can see, the good, it's not used anymore, but, they see how, well, we need to get money for something that was in the 1800s.
Yeah, they're in Omaha. It's like whether you're New Britain, Connecticut, or you're in Omaha, Nebraska.
Exactly.
What does Sterling, Illinois mean to you, and how can we effectively make it mean something to you? Money.
Exactly.
That's the sad part.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I don't know how you do it. Now, the other thing that...
this is how usually on Fridays.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay, I'll take
Cheers.
that, all right.
Cheers.
The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm excited about it, is, and I got the plans, I got the whole roll. It's about this big. Scott gave it to me, Grandin.
Yeah, we finally got that underway.
Yeah, that's...
So,
But that probably won't start till next year, right?
we actually met about that this morning. That was good progress on that, I think. So this is the first time we've ever done that. Generally, when we do a project like the Coliseum or the farmers market or the public market, were last two kind of projects which were part infrastructure, part building structure. And the Coliseum, obviously, we remodeled that, gutted the whole thing. So we had a lot of building effort to it, but also we did parking lot, curb, sidewalks around it, the geothermal, things of that nature. Same with the public market. We took a gravel lot, put it in parking lots, but also put up a vertical structure there as well. And we had some hiccups along both. I mean, they both turned out fine in the end, but there were hiccups along the way. And we were looking at different ways of maybe getting Central Park done, because what we were hoping to do is get a concessions building with restrooms in there. Because the only bathrooms now are, there's two non-accessible ones in the Grandin Civic Center, and I think only one's usable. One usable? Is one even
There's
usable?
bathrooms in that?
There's bathrooms in the band shell.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Never used it.
I've been down there since I was a kid. I
don't know
knew
if
that.
one's. I don't know if they're access. I mean, I don't even know if one's like on. But yeah, there's a little. It's no more than a 1950s toilet and a 1950s sink is all it is. But otherwise, people, I know Main Street's been good about the last few years renting a porta potty down there. But other than that, you're going to the Coliseum. You can walk to the Coliseum and use the bathrooms on the first floor. So we wanted to get a concession stand down there because hopefully with that there, it makes it a lot more usable. When we had we lost the Fiesta Days to the Rock Falls Riverfront, and I think they've had
really?
the dancers and things. Taste of Fiesta, excuse me, yes.
Great.
And so they've put the dancers and things are there. And one of the issues, I know that having places to change into the costumes and the band shell, the little wings, they're 90% 100% full with chairs, timpanis, bass drums. I mean, it's all speakers. They're jammed, and there's not really places to use as a changing room. And so we're hoping to have that. Full-time concessions facility will be easier to meet health codes because we're, the 3-compartment sink that you're required to have these days for different things. So we wanted to get that built. We also had the architects design it. And we used a local architect to do that, Skip McLeod.
Yep.
And he did it to match what the band shell looks like. So it'll tie it all in. It'll really.
I
That'd
haven't,
be cool.
I haven't looked at it yet. I got Scott gave me the roll, and I was excited about it. I go,
So I hope somewhere, maybe. It's on Facebook, if anything else. I think it's been on Facebook. But so it'll match, and then we were going to put in a perimeter walking path, because again, when the food trucks have been in there in the past, they kind of lined up around the outside, and this gives us, there's no real fluid way to walk around there. The paths are kind of unique, I guess, in a perspective. Those trees on the north side are dead, as you know, and they've been dead for a few years. We've been talking about pulling them out.
Spruce, but,
I kept waiting for this contract to go, and so now we're doing
and they're
this.
doing the road. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a state project.
That's
that
a
one.
state,
They
but
are doing
thank
that.
God.
But we're putting in new lighting, because if anybody's been down to to a concert or the movies, those old lights, they were the original gas lights converted to electric, and half of them are, I don't know, half of them work, maybe. Yeah, the electric is horrible because it's just dated, and several of those poles are bent over leaning. So we've got new lighting that's Art Deco to match the Art Deco shell, that matches the Art Deco concession building, just kind of tie it all in. And then again, new walking path around the outside to tie it all in. And then a little water feature. It's not a full-blown splash pad, but if you've ever been in like a little spray pad, there'll be a little spray pad there. And then at night, we can set it on a timer, kind of light it up, so it's an attractive feature. And then during the day, it's basically this little press button that'll turn it on that kids can use.
Are they keeping the cannons?
Cannons are staying. Cannons don't go. So we made sure that there's those 4 spruces go, and I think there's 2 maples that are questionable that are going.
I haven't looked at them. I just know. I
some-
told Brad, I go, man, those spruces are bad.
Yeah.
And it's that virus going through the
Yes.
blue spruce. It's just, I mean, it's got them. It's killed them.
Yeah. So Scott is hoping to, so this project, we hired Scott Hayward to be a construction manager. So he's independently getting multiple quotes. Instead of hiring a general contractor who then goes out and hires the subs, Scott's going to act as the city's general on our behalf to get quotes for individual subs for each project. And I think it's just because we've got a building project, we've got concrete work, and we've got the spray pad, which is going to take some specialized things. So there's going to be plumbers involved, electricians, concrete guys, and then actual builders. And and some I don't know how much landscaping is actually involved in it, but and in the end, we thought maybe him going out there and getting some individual contracts would help us. But then today, I find out, what's the word I'm looking for? Hang on a second. On back order was, I will get this in a quick moment. Bar joists. I couldn't think of that off the top of my head. For the actual roof structure for the building, bar joists, Scott said, are backdated. They're on order till next year, and so he was trying to get it. He's trying to work with Skip to see if he can use I-beams instead. But he mentioned that between Amazon and who was the other? Oh, Amazon and Facebook, between all their server farms and things that they're building, that they've taken up, I guess, most of the bar joists, or a third of the bar joist orders in America. So there's it's just everything's in a backlog these days.
Plant-wise, I mean, it's the same thing with us. There's stuff, I mean, the roses. The roses that we can normally get in that, I can't get. I'm going like, you're kidding me. They go, no, we don't have any. Arborvitaes was another thing. I was lucky to get the ones that I got this year because it's a shortage. Question?
Well, comments. This
Okay.
section has been.
Okay, sorry.
I think it's been resonating. We've got a lot of thanks. Linda Sue Brown, thanks Scott for your time and great job for Sterling. Stuart said something. I have no idea what this was written reference to. Those were outhouses when you were a kid, bud. I don't know. The bathrooms at Granted? Probably. Okay.
Oh.
All right. Lots of great interviews. Jim Wise said, great, refreshing, informal update of what is going on in Sterling. Thanks to Bud, Scott, and the production manager.
That's the whole idea behind it.
And then Cindy Sanders got one
Uh-oh.
that's a little bit offbeat.
Uh-oh.
I am thinking these two Packer fans may need to comment on our team.
Oh, man.
I just read tonight. I don't know. You know,
Was there something new today?
well, yes. Alex Smith
Yes.
was interviewed, and I don't know how well, you know why he was interviewed, because him and Aaron were in the same, were
Draft class,
drafted
right?
the
Yeah.
same time, and they were talking, and I read the interview, and it said that Alex was saying that, well, you know, with the statue of how Aaron Rodgers is, and that he needs to have a little bit more, I guess, respect and listen to a little bit more than just an average person on the team or a regular starting guy, because of his, you know, and I can see that, but, you know, he's only talked once, one little tidbit,
Right.
and I've not heard anything. And they said, and they ended it by saying, we'll see what happens when training camp comes around. I don't know.
That's the update.
Yeah, I've been up and down. I feel like, you know, part of me, it was like just like when Favre was leaving. We had this annual thing for like 3 years in a row. Is he not? And it was just at one point you're just like, you know, if you're gonna jerk us around like this, just go. And then, you know, and
Part of me is like, all right, you know what? I guess we'll take Love and we'll see what happens.
yeah,
you know,
right. And I can't imagine being at his level. And you know, I know you complain about not having a second wide receiver, but you got top 3, top 5 wide receivers on your team. You've got top 5 running back on your team, top 3 offensive line, and you're complaining? I don't know who else has that luxury necessarily, but
and he's got enough freaking money,
Right.
You know, I mean, what
yeah,
do
so
you
I don't
need?
know. I don't think it's obviously it's this respect thing, but Tom Brady, I feel like, did it with a lot less. And so if Aaron wants to really prove himself, I don't know why he doesn't step up and stick with his team. And I don't know. And of course, I got a little old school in me too, and I like a player who sticks around his team for his
That's
career,
exactly
and
the way I
don't
am
know,
too, Scott. I
just,
thought, you know what, you started there, just stick with them. You know, like I told my son, I go, there's shit to every job. I
Right,
said, you
yeah.
might think that's an easy job. There's something to that part of that job that is shit.
Yeah, at this point, I don't. And he's not a dumb. He's clearly not a dumb guy. But you know, learning a whole new playbook at this part of the season, getting ready to take snaps in a few months. I don't know. If you're talented enough, you can overcome some of that non-familiarity or unfamiliarity. But I don't know.
I think he's going to.
I do wish he'd come back.
Cindy
but-
agrees with you guys.
I-
She said the holdout's nuts.
Yeah, I just think I just don't like, you know. And I was talking. Who was I talking to the other day? I wasn't one of the kids, because the kids had no idea who Too Tall Jones was.
I remember the football card. I don't know if I remember. Wasn't he in the Police Academy?
He might have been in a movie.
Wait, wasn't? Someone's got to know who was. That was the football actor in Police Academy. Wasn't that Ed Too Tall Jones? Someone
But I
has to
said
know.
he epitomized the word clothesline, because I can still remember, you know, sticking his arm out,
Yeah.
and the guy, you know, and you can't do that anymore. But the young kids, who was I talking to about the old school football? Because, you know, I love football. That's to me the only sport that there is. I don't care. I know that people will disagree with me, but to me the rest of the stuff is just, there isn't anything. Football is it.
I just wish they hadn't had the 17th game.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a detriment too. Because I hate how that messes with the record books on top of it all.
Yep.
I don't know. It's just. Was it Bubba Smith? Is that
Oh,
who it was?
Bubba.
All right.
Bubba.
Never mind. Sorry.
Bubba was a big boy.
It was. Yeah. All right. Oh, that's why I got confused.
Hightower.
That's what it
Hightower.
was. All right.
Too Tall and Hightower,
Yeah, all
kind
right,
of the
something.
same. Is there any other stuff, Lisa? Is there? Because we've been talking. I mean,
Obviously not movie.
Well, they've been enjoying the topic
you know,
on.
and I don't know. You know, I can't say enough. And this started probably. Oh, it's probably been 8 years, 9 years ago, when the Royer home, which Scott
Right.
originally had, I saw the article in the paper, and I thought, like, wow. And I'm going like, man, you know, that needs to be landscaped. And I knew Scott way back when I was Dr. Herman's private gardener, because his wife at the time was their nanny.
Okay.
And so I met Scott, so I knew him. So, and I thought, well, there's his phone number. So I remember calling Scott up that day, and I go, hey, this is Bud Lefevre. He goes, hey, how you doing? I go, good. I go, hey, I see that picture of the Royer home down there. I said, don't you need landscaping? He goes, you know what? I never thought about you. He goes, come on down. And ever since then, he has brought, and I feel bad. I mean, got him some jobs with construction wise, but he's brought me along on the projects, and I like work. I Skip, I've used,
Yeah.
seen his drawings and stuff like that, and I think it's a really, I don't know. I just think it's a pretty good combination with Skip doing the drawings. I like the way he designs stuff, and
Yeah, he was really good to work with us because that was one of the things I really wanted out of the Central Park was to, the gazebo feels a little out of place in that park just because it doesn't match that kind of Art Deco feel. And when we went back and did the branding exercise a couple of years ago, the amount of Art Deco stuff in town, including the Coliseum, the old Gazette building is Art Deco.
I got
really
a
cool.
story about
Yeah,
that.
and
for
so we kind of wanted to stay with that a little bit and complement the band shell as opposed to just sticking something in there that's kind of I didn't want to block restroom in there, concrete block restroom, whatever, something very basic. And yeah, it's going to cost a little, but I think it'll add so much to that park. And again, adding that with a little water feature, and it'll be enough to carry that park on for the next 50 years, I hope.
You know what's really cool is the band shell and the Gazette building were designed by a friend of mine's grandfather.
Oh, I know they're the same person. That would make
John
sense.
Carlson.
Okay.
And John is well known in Rockford as J. Carlson Growers. He's a huge landscape nursery up there. So
all right.
that's how he came to town, and he goes, yeah, my grandpa designed the Gazette building and the band shell, and that he was an architect and stuff like that. So there was ties there. So it was really cool. I thought that's kind of interesting. And I think, when Brad called me down to Dale Park, and was talking about, he wanted to do these new lights, and he was explaining to me what they were, and then he's got his guy that can weld and design these tables.
Yeah.
I thought, I got excited as hell because I go, you know what? Once you get this done like this and you have those tables down there, I mean, Jana's using it for the pop-up market. That's one thing. But what if you could use that for other things and any kind of somebody that wants to have a little fundraiser or whatever down there, or just to do something. I just think it'll make it more of a place for people to come. You're getting the picnic tables down there, which I think is going to be good because you can come. We had to sit on the blocks after we put the baskets up. I went to Kelly's and got everybody lunch, but the tables weren't there. But there was a kid, so we just sat around on the wall and ate our lunch and stuff and visited. But I think that park will be a lot more utilized and.
I can't. 10 years ago, was anybody utilizing that park?
No,
I mean, that was.
been in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and it'll be nice. And I don't. That may be one of the few nice outcomes of COVID was it might change the carry-out laws and rules at Illinois, because there's so much that we're allowed to do, but we are really governed a lot by the state, especially as non-home rule city, and anytime alcohol is involved, and maybe that makes it a place where you can take Kelly's or the Lisa's at a depot and take your dinner and have it in the park or whatever, and it just change a little bit of what that's like. And so to what you're talking about, the plans is the light poles that are there are not in great shape. A couple, I think the light heads are crooked. And
he said he's got them, he's got duct tape on a
yeah,
couple,
right.
on a couple.
And, so he's identified some new light poles for that. And then again, our city mechanic is highly talented, and that's one of the benefits of it. And he's the one that welded together. I found those, if you've been to the riverfront, those swinging benches that are down there, again, they use the I-beams that are cut out. And it was something I stole from Dayton, Ohio. And I saw them there on TripAdvisor when I was passing through trying to find something on the way home from Ohio. And I thought, man, those cool. They fit right with the theme of what we got with the old Northwestern Steel and Wire there. And I brought them back, and I was trying to find, where do they get these things at? And I'm looking all over the internet, and I asked the planners, and they can't find anything. And I finally called the Parks and Rec or somebody out in Dayton, Ohio, and I'll send you the plans for those. Oh, okay. So sent us the plans, and I showed them to Brad over at Public Works, and he showed them to the city mechanic. He's like, well, I can make that. okay. So
Yeah, man, I tell you, that guy's talented because I thought those were really cool when I went down there. Those are, and it goes exactly with what was there.
right, and so now he's going to take that, and we're trying to get, I think those lights that we've got down Light Street, I call them party lights for lack of a better word.
Right, and they
The string lights. They add an ambiance. I think that really helps. And so Brad and I have been working, and he's been working with Ben to try and figure out how do we get some more of that in the downtown area, and that's what we're trying to do is connect some of those decorative lights and then string in between them those the string lights.
And I thought,
really
when he
creates
was
an ambiance
showing
for the
me
park.
the drawings and stuff like that, I said, man, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then I asked him, I go, did I say square would be easier? And I can't remember what he said on the tables, for the people like to lean up on,
Yeah.
not to just to have a drink in it. And I can't remember, but I just think it's going to be really nice. And it's the same, and I think that is a smart thing to do. You're tying Light Street, the Dale, and then if you got lights in another spot, and that's what I'm trying, what we've been trying to do with the downtown is to tie in, our end of it. I can't do any of the stuff, but plant material wise in the downtown. So when you walk around, there's some of this, you see some of the same stuff or colors and stuff like that, here and things like that. Because I just think it adds to it. And that was one of the other things in this small cities with big ideas things, which is what you're big on, is trees in the downtown. The benefit of the trees, I know sometimes that they're looked on as where they're blocking some of the businesses and things like that, but also the benefit of cleaning the air with, if you got more traffic down there. Plus the other thing is about cooling. Dale Park, we sat under those trees, on that thing, and it was nice and cool. It was hot as hell that day. We were hot, when we hung those baskets. But, there's a big benefit about the greenery in the downtown.
Part of that too is it's when they're gone. That's when you don't notice them until they're gone, and then when they're gone, then you do. Because one of the other things is I've seen as one is just for walking around downtown for that very reason too. Is if it's hotter and blazes, nobody wants to be walking around through that. It's a kind of a turn off as far as that goes. And two, it is the ambiance of it. We go back to that, and people, the aesthetics really do matter, and it's not if they didn't. We think about all these nice towns, these tree-lined suburbs, and how beautiful it is, and then we turn around and want to do just the opposite because we're not the suburbs. Well, there's a reason people are drawn to that, and those great downtowns and planters, and we've talked to this. I know you're working with it about trying to maybe limb up trees rather than removing them entirely. And sometimes you get just caught in that awkward stage where the tree's not tall enough to limb up. You got to wait for it to get high enough for the canopy to really fill in, and we run into things too is tree selection becomes a problem. I know we've met about this too, is trying to find, something either columnar that's narrow and still grows and gives some help versus, what's salt tolerant. And
Sure.
I was on one of our downtown businesses. I walked to work a couple times and I saw the amount of salt on the sidewalk and in the grates, and I thought, this isn't going to last. And I pleaded with them, and he said, well, here's so-and-so's my snow removal guy, and I knew who it was, and I knew I wasn't going to get anywhere with him. And sure enough, spring comes, the tree never leafed out this year, and deader than a doornail, and it's just, it gets frustrating, but.
And I've taken the ones that, and on Route 2 here, all the way out to, where Staples used to be, I've kind of taken them under my wings. Every fall, I tell Brad, I'm going to go out and prune. And I've been pruning them up, and trying to and I see there's about 3 of them that died.
Yeah.
But we and Brad and I were coming up with. He said something last year that the guy mowing, weed whacks, and it's hitting those small trunks. So I go, wait a minute. So I had the guys. We had some of that corrugated black tubing. I said, Quinn, cut it off and slit it down like this. And I said, as I'm trimming, you guys just they don't have to be real tall, just a little. So we've got most of the small trees wrapped with those so they don't weed whack, the trunks, and they can grow. But I see 3 of them died. They're not leafed out very well. But my 3 proudest ones are right by where Majeski's Quick Lube is.
Yeah.
In that corner where you turn around the cemetery there. Look at those, man. Those things are shaped good. They really look nice. They're really, really probably the best 3 trees that are there. And the 2 red buds that are in front of Wendy's are really nice too.
Yeah, and if you got an idea for Avenue M.
Where the hell's Avenue M?
Right. right in front of the Stewart Beverage. The corner
Oh
there,
well,
that
that's
little island. That
well.
island.
Let me tell you, Scott. That's another project that Scott's brought me in on.
Oh yes,
Because
yeah.
Hibbard, did you see his pictures the other day?
I have not, but I know
I
he's
was
got an interest in
drooling.
that area now.
That freak. I don't know what he's going to use that freaking bandsaw for. Well, see, Scott, they've got they bought the Stewart Beverage building. Yeah.
Well, I know if that was public knowledge, so I wasn't going to say anything.
Oh, sorry, Scott, if I didn't. Well, he posted pictures on
okay.
Facebook,
All right.
and he was right in front of it, bringing this bandsaw was freaking huge. So I just typed on there. Well, now when I want to do woodworking, I know where I can go, because oh my God, the woodworking equipment was really fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's a project of his. Is some woodworking things he's got coming up here.
Well, he does all that stuff. I mean, look what he did. I don't know if you've ever been in the carriage house. That's called the McPherson home. We just landscaped it, which is on West 3rd Street and 11th, I think it is. Right off a block up from Avenue G.
The D? West of D, isn't it? It's still west of D.
Oh, I'm sorry, not 11th. Why was I thinking? Yeah, it's a block up from G.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Anyway, the carriage house that he built there was really a nice house. Really a nice,
Right, yeah.
like it's an office, pretty much garage, and it's got a cherry 1970 Chevy truck in it. I was talking to Tom about it. I go, well, I originally, when I went in there and presented the plans to him, I presented to Scott and I go, you tell Tom, because I had met Tom, that I'll do the landscaping of this whole place on there for that truck right there. So about a week later, Scott gets back and says, it's an okay. And I said, hot damn. So when I went and I had to meet because Tom had some questions, and I go, so Scott, you said it was okay, so I'm landscaping that for that truck right there. And Tom looked at me and goes, no. And I go, well, wait a minute. I told Scott that was the deal, and he said okay. But anyway, yeah, I think Scott does. I mean, in the restoration, like on the inside of that McPherson home, I don't know if you guys have been in that. It's real. Oh man, I mean, what he did around the fireplaces and stuff, because that was an old house. I mean, all those houses on West 3rd Street are definitely dated, but it's really, really nice. But yeah, he already told me, he goes, I'll give you a heads up. We're gonna want some plants and stuff, and maybe trees. Well, that's in the thing along there, the old Stewart Beverage, but that's something that we're probably going to be working on with him there.
Yeah, I always thought that island would help. It would clean that island up for some reason. It just as an entry and you're coming in before you make that turn to go down on 3rd Street, just coming down 4th, I just always thought something needed to be in that island.
Speaking of that, as you come off Rock Falls to Avenue G,
Okay.
the sign.
Yeah, so I do have, so we inherited that lot. That house was there. We ended up, that was kind of a cool house too. Brad and I walked through that together.
You know how many times I told Scott, I go, Scott, you redoing houses. I remember the old people sitting in the porch on that house. I go, that's a cool house. I go, it's solid. He goes, it's bad location, but I couldn't ever get anything out of it. And I'm like,
it was that house had some character to it. I thought so from the outside, but then when I got to go through it, and by that point it was way too far gone.
Well, the roof was
gone.
It
was so far gone, but you could still see the character of the house, and that would have been something else to see. But anyhow, we ended up demoing it because of the condition it had fallen into. So we inherited a lot, and again, what do you do with that lot? What's that?
When are the signs going up?
Well, so I have 2 proposals in place, and I got to figure out a process for picking between the 2. Well, I have multiple proposals from 2 sign companies.
Okay.
How's that? And I got to figure out a process for how we're gonna.
Because I know the bases are there. Because
bases are there. That's all done. I know that lot looks really good. So now when I do go down Avenue G, I'm like, I got to get on that. But it's just been with all these other topics, it's not been there. It's one of those things where when I kind of think about it, like I got to get back to that. So that's an on me type of situation right there. But
because I asked Brad, I go, have you heard anything when the signs are going up there on Avenue G? The guy's been down a couple of times. I know I sprayed. I made him, and then I told Brad, I said, you got any real big rocks? I go, I'm talking gigantic. He goes, why? I go, because somebody went up on the berm and back. And
already?
Yeah, they fixed it. They didn't hit the plants, but they went way up in it. And I'm going like, so I told Quinn, I go, when you guys go down there, I go, rake that out and that, because we had that build up so it was soft. And I mean, it went way down in it. So they fixed it. But I told Brad, I go, we need to put something there, maybe stop strips or something like that so it blows their tires or whatever. But yeah, they pulled into that. But no, I just think that'll be nice coming across the bridge. And then we've got the tree. And I think I told Quinn Wednesday, I think this week when they're going down. Yep. And I told Brad said they were going to take it down, but I told Quinn, I go, you guys can take that small tree down. I said, cut it down in pieces. And I said, get it out of there and and trim the bushes up because I've got the new, matter of fact, that's what it will look like full grown.
Oh, okay.
That gold evergreen right there.
Oh,
that's what
that
we're
one.
planting
Okay.
there. That's what we're planting in place of the con color that has died.
Okay.
And it'll be really nice. And it's about 7 to 8 feet tall. And then we'll do the front. We're waiting, Brad and I both are of the same opinion. We're waiting for a little bit more moisture before we move forward to do anything in front of that and that, so. Okay, I'll have them pull them because they're going down. I think they're going down there Wednesday, and I told Quinn, I go, this is the spot you're going to, because they cleaned up Grummert's parking lot. That was a mess.
Got a gardening question since you're kind of.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize.
I'm rambling.
No, it's all fine. It's good. While back, Mary Hurley Schmidt. My hibiscus are starting to lean. Should I stake them?
You know what we did, and Lisa came up with the idea, is to put a tomato cage around them. And so we put a small, cheap tomato cage around the hibiscus, and they're standing up a lot better. Now, Mike Musgrave, when I was over to his house, and I may take pictures of it, his are kind of laying down, but now they're all coming up, and he's fine with that because it fills in an area for him, but yeah.
Yeah, the tomato, if I had enough distance, I'd just go out and show her.
And I tell you what, you guys, I went by Sterling Fed today, and the hairy balls are about 4 feet tall. And I tell you what, when those things start to flower, that lady at Sterling Fed's going to regret I even planted them in there. Have you ever seen them?
No, I can't.
You'll have to go by. Well, I did them at Shell gas station. Yes, I did them at Shell gas station down here last year.
Okay.
And Sheila, that manages it, was so pissed off at me because every 5 minutes somebody goes, "What's that plant?" I had other nursery people go, "Bud, you planted the plants at Shell. I'm getting gas. What the hell are those things?" They were calling me and asking me, but it's from our friend out in, and we had him on a SippinTrip, Lloyd from Peachtree Farms. They're called hairy balls.
Okay. I like this one.
Now don't punch that in.
Oh, God!
They're gonna get a porn site.
Well, on second thought.
Yeah, that might be a Google rabbit hole.
If you punch in the Latin name, which is Gomphocarpus, that would probably give you the hairy balls.
Yeah.
But I told the lady it was funny because when I planted those at Sterling Fed, I kept a tag and I went inside. And when I got done, Kate Litch, who got us hooked up planting those, has retired. So this other lady has taken over. I gave her the tag, and on the tag, I told her, I said, make sure that you copy this because once those things start flowering, everybody's going to be asking what they are. And they look awesome. They're up really pretty tall.
Is this?
Yes.
Okay.
It's definitely a conversation piece.
Okay. Does it start off as a conversation piece, or does it end up as a conversation piece?
Ends up as.
Okay,
Ends up.
sorry, yes.
Because
up.
Jennifer Bachner goes, is that what? I go, Jennifer, I said the same thing. I said, if those are the hairy balls, those real small things, I go, that thing sucks. I go, just wait. I go, it's going to put on a show, and when you have people come over, they're going to walk past your gate, and they're going to stop and go, what the hell is that? They're going to say that, believe me.
Uh-huh.
So, is there any other questions or whatever?
Nope, that's it. Just a lot of positive comments that I just put up on the screen throughout, so people were appreciative of what you guys were talking about. So yeah, I think that's it.
I was reminded to give a shameless plug to the city's new website if anybody hasn't been there. So we actually have an issue. We have an old address that goes back to when I first created the first city website, which tells you I've been here way too long, maybe. I don't know. It was back in '99.
Oh,
It was, yeah, I know, ci.sterling.il.us. And at that time, you got that kind of address through the University of Southern California. And our new IT guy didn't believe, I don't even think he believed me when I told him this, but shortly thereafter, it flipped over to like Network Solutions and it went through a whole thing. But eventually that fell out of favor and everybody got a .gov address for public domains. So our sterling-il.gov website has been revamped within about the last month. And it's up there, but sometimes Google still wants to send you to the ci.sterling.il.us, which is the old one. And we're trying to get that forward linked, but we're having some issues with that. But our new website is great. I think we've tried to do, I went through about 10 years of emails, of all the emails that came through the website about asking questions, whether it was about utility bills or whatever it was. We've created enough frequently asked questions stuff that if you search it, I think you can find just about any information you need for the website. And we've got our brand new comp plan is up there. All the riverfront stuff's up there, I think, under the community page. It's easy to, if we can't find it there, it's easily searched.
And they can message you, like if they had a question.
I've gotten a couple emails to I get the generic emails. So yeah, I've had a couple. It was 2 days ago, a day or two ago, I received a message that somebody was upset that they had been awoken for 4 straight days by construction equipment on First Avenue. And the same day I got an email that nothing had happened on First Avenue for the last 2 weeks. Could you give me an update of what's going on? And I could not make that up. But that is honest to God truth. And I just, you kind of sometimes shake your head at how's one person complain that they've been woken up 4 days in a row before 7 o'clock, and the contractor, of course, today denied that they're started before 7, except for starting up an engine to get oil moving or something. And then another guy said he hasn't seen anything for 4 days, or hasn't seen anything in 2 weeks. Could you let me know what's going on? So it's, but yes, so I do get emails to the website, and I generally, if you get the general questions, I get those, and I like to have them just to make sure I know that they're getting forwarded on to the right person and getting taken care of and getting some kind of reply back. So 50% of the time, if you send a generic email in, it's me replying, or the worst case, I am trying to forward it on to the right person, so I've at least seen it and know there's something going on in the background.
Cool. Awesome.
yeah.
Well, I think that's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
We've been on.
It's been great. Cindy Zander said, great job, guys. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Stuart Corsa says, I might be interested in buying one of those cannons.
They're not for
They're not
sale,
leaving.
Not
Stuart.
for sale.
They're not leaving.
Nope.
Stuart, they're
Sorry,
not.
Stuart.
Stuart, just go back and hibernate.
Yep.
Stuart was on last week. Oh,
Oh,
it's
and
because you. Thanks, Scott.
we've got our.
Oh,
you didn't
yeah, I
show
know.
up,
Well,
we
I
had to
know,
have
I
Stuart.
do. I did. There was a giant bike ride. I went on an 80-mile bike ride last weekend, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity because it's a bacon-themed bike ride. So I'd be I'd be a
Bacon-themed.
fool to miss it. So
John Cudis.
Oh, did he? All
Yes,
right.
he did.
Well, thank you very much. I think this was great. I think
no, I'd happy to come out anytime again.
Yeah, this was great.
Great with the information on what's going on in the city. I think there's a lot of misinformation that people don't understand and stuff like that. So hopefully it cleared some stuff up.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that's actually, real quick, that's been one of our biggest challenges. That's why I'm happy to be here. Is 20 years ago, everybody had a subscription to the Gazette, and the Gazette had full-time reporters in all the communities, and now they don't have a full-time community reporter for each community. And WSDR, satellite radio's here that wasn't there before. Podcasting's here that wasn't there before. Pandora, all these things, and so the local media, and not through any of their fault or own, but doesn't have the reach that it used to. And trying to
Amen.
get through to people, we've had email newsletters, and we don't get a whole lot of signups for that. The school, we used to have a joint newsletter that went out with the school district and the township, and the school district finally, they were the ones paying most of the freight on it, and they said, hey, we're done, because people just weren't using the newsletters, and they'd gone all of the e-packets, and that was their way of communicating. The cable channel, as people have cut the cord, Channel 11 was run by the school district for us, and the school gets, cable, as people cut the cord, I've cut the cord myself, and people have done that. So cable's not the way to necessarily get through to everybody, and the fractured media has really created a problem for local government to try and get things out, and it's not good in any respect, because we can't communicate what's going on. Some people have Facebook, not everybody. We've tried to do a little bit of Twitter, but we're still behind the curve, and we don't have an Instagram account. But short of hiring a media person, today I had that thought to myself: is we almost need a media person to handle this. But I bristle at the thought of using tax dollars to hire a media person. But how else do you try and find a way to get the information?
It's a
out about what
full-time
we're
job,
doing?
Scott.
It almost
Yeah,
is.
it's full-time.
Lisa can
job.
attest to that.
It's complex anymore.
It makes it tough, and so I'm happy to be able to do this. And whether you hit 5 people or you hit 500, it's better than what we're doing nothing, I guess. And so yeah, we're happy to try and do what we can to
Tried to get
communicate and answer questions.
Brad to come too, but you know what he said? He goes, "I'm going to be camping."
Hey, you guys, you want to see Scott Shumard on again? Just give me a reply so I can know. We'll get him on later on, and he can
That
give
way
us
they
an
can throw-
update.
There's not a tomato garden here, is there?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes,
no.
there's a tomato garden.
Okay, well when the tomatoes are still small, please.
No, I think
No,
you
I just
were
think that
received
you're-
really
you're
well.
You're probably right with the perception of, a lot of people don't know. And I've talked to Brad a couple of times about stuff. I go, well, somebody posted something about this going on, and I said, I knew what was going on, so I reiterated back. Well, no, that's not really what's going on. This is,
Right.
This is who's in charge and stuff. That's,
And it's hard. Well, the part, even a news story in 3 paragraphs of news or a 30-second clip, you can't convey what we've just gone through. And we're hitting still the surface of how complex and how much time gets wrapped up in some of these things. And like I said, it doesn't go well for us trying to communicate, and it's not good for transparency either, because whether it's the township, whether it's your mosquito abatement district, or whatever it is, there's no oversight anymore, and you need the press there to do that. But nobody wants to pay for media. Everybody thinks everything should be free, and it's I don't know where it goes, but it's not a good direction as far as accountability and transparency, that's for sure. And I think that'll be the most regrettable thing about the fall of traditional media, is just oversight.
Well, we got a couple that have expressed that they want to see Scott on again, so
okay, all right, we can do
maybe
that.
we could just fold that into the routine, you guys.
All right, that sounds good.
We're
Well, thank you, Scott, and thank you everybody for hanging out. And don't forget, I said this last night in my video. It's rained, but that ground has been freaking dry. So water your plants, everybody. You need to water.
all right. I'm gonna cue up John's send-off.
All right, peace.
All right, peace, and love all of you.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for showing up.
Yep. All right, guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.
Yep. Be there, be square.
Yes.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody.